students, welcome to Prodigy Edu Classes. If this is the first video you are watching, I suggest that you first look at cell membrane 1 and then come to watch this video, because this is cell membrane 2 and it is a continuation of the previous video. As you have already known that we have discussed the structure and various models of the cell membrane. So here I have already made a diagram of the fluid mosaic model of the cell membrane of Singer and Nicholson. And here we will be discussing how the cell membrane functions. We will be covering the functions of proteins, the function of lipid and cholesterol, the function of glycoproteins and glycolipids, various modifications of the cell membrane, and a few high yield MCQs throughout this video. Now, first of all, what you need to know is that we have various substances which need to pass from inside the cell outside and from outside to inside for its functioning. So how do they pass? Here look, I have glucose, I have amino acids, I have sodium and bicarbonate, and I have water. Here I have vitamins and I have lipids. Now see, glucose, amino acids, sodium and bicarbonate and water all are water soluble substances. So since this part of the cell membrane, look, this is a lipid bilayer. So outside there is water, inside also there is water, but in between the two lipid layers there is no water. So water soluble substance, even if it comes over here, will be unstable in between. So it will not be able to pass across the lipid bilayer membrane spontaneously. All of these won't be able to pass spontaneously across the lipid bilayer membrane. Whereas if you look at lipids, lipids will spontaneously pass across this lipid bilayer membrane, as lipids are soluble in lipids. Okay, so if you look at lipids, they will pass from the outside to the inside spontaneously by simple diffusion. As they will be soluble in the cell membrane. Now, what is the function of the proteins? If you look at the proteins, the types of proteins in the cell membrane, you will find that there will be structural proteins, there will be channel proteins, there will be carrier proteins, there will be enzymes, and there will be receptors. So there will be 5 types of proteins in a cell membrane. What do structural proteins do? Structural proteins are proteins which hold the cell membrane together. They provide the cell membrane with structural integrity. You will find integral proteins within the cell membrane which are connected to microfibrils and microfilaments present in the cytoplasm. And these will hold together the cell membrane in its integrity. Next, channel proteins. What are channel proteins? Channel proteins are transmembrane proteins which have a channel at their center. They have a channel at their center which will allow certain substances to pass from outside to inside and inside outwards. How do they do that? Now, proteins have a hydrophilic property. Amino acids have a hydrophilic property. So all of these substances, if you look at water and if you look at ions, sodium and bicarbonate, or the other ions like potassium chloride, all of them will use these channel proteins to pass across the cell membrane. They will pass across the cell membrane through channel proteins. Next you have carrier proteins. Carrier proteins are involved in 2 types of transport. One, you have facilitated diffusion and you have active transport. Look, ions and water are small molecules, so these can pass through channels. But if you look at bigger molecules like glucose, amino acids and other hydrophilic complex molecules, you will find that they are not sufficiently small to pass through these channel proteins. So they will use carrier proteins to be transported across the cell membrane. Carrier proteins are such proteins which will bind to these hydrophilic substances and then undergo a change in their structural configuration and pass the substance from outside inwards or vice versa. Okay. So this carrier protein mediated transport may be of two types. One is facilitated diffusion, another is active transport. What is the difference? Both will occur through carrier proteins, but in facilitated diffusion, the transport will occur along the concentration gradient. Like imagine something X being more on the outside and less on the inside. So if you want to move X from outside inwards and X is a hydrophilic complex molecule, you'll find that you're coming along the concentration gradient. So X will pass without any necessity of energy only through the carrier protein. This is known as facilitated diffusion, where you do not require energy. There is no energy requirement. On the other hand, there will be some substances, say Y, which will be less on the outside and more on the inside. But still, Y being an essential substance, you will need to transfer Y from outside the cell to the inside. What do you do then? Then comes the necessity of active transport. Active transport uses energy. Active transport will use energy. Active transport will use energy in the form of ATP, break it down to ADP and phosphate, and this energy will help transfer Y from outside to inside against the concentration gradient with the help of a carrier protein. So facilitated diffusion is along the concentration gradient, it does not require energy. Active transport is against the concentration gradient, hence it requires energy. Next, some proteins will be functioning as enzymes within the membrane. You'll find enzymes like cytochrome. One example will be cytochrome P450. Such enzymes will be present in the cell membrane. Proteins will also act as receptors. If you look at substances such as neurotransmitters, they will transfer various signals. Neurotransmitter, you will find hormones, they will transfer various signals to the cell through these receptor proteins. Receptor proteins will typically be glycoproteins. They will typically be glycoproteins because this oligosaccharide that will be present over the receptor will help in recognition of the molecule and the protein will interpret the message. Okay. So these are the different types of proteins that you will find in a cell membrane. Now, let me just clear it out a bit. So to sum up, you have glucose, amino acids, ions and water. All of these will come inside the cell, across the cell membrane, with the help of proteins. Lipids will come on their own through simple diffusion. What about vitamins? If we look at vitamins, vitamin A, D, E and K are fat soluble vitamins. So fat soluble vitamins or lipid soluble vitamins will transfer like lipids across the cell membrane through simple diffusion. On the other hand, if you look at vitamin B complex, they'll have hydrophilic properties, so they'll use carrier proteins to get transported across the cell membrane. Okay, so next we'll come to the function of lipids and cholesterol in the cell membrane. Look, lipids form the basic structure of the cell membrane. As you have already seen, that lipids are creating a hydrophobic barrier between a hydrophilic or a predominantly aquatic outer environment and a predominantly aquatic inner environment. Okay, what does cholesterol do? Cholesterol gives the membrane stability. Normally phospholipids with unsaturated fatty acids will provide the cell membrane with more fluidity, whereas a cholesterol will provide the cell membrane with more stability or a more solid tendency. So a balance between the presence of unsaturated fatty acids in phospholipids and cholesterol will provide you a membrane which is structurally stable. Next you come to glycoproteins and glycolipids. Glycoproteins and glycolipids with structural with oligosaccharides on their head, these will act as receptors and will be involved in cell signaling and cell recognition. Okay, when one cell is sending a signal, the cells of immunity, various chemical messengers, various nerve transmission will all take place through these receptors. Okay, so the oligosaccharides present on the lipids and proteins will essentially form the glycocalyx, which is also a part of the cell membrane region. Okay. Next we will come to the modifications of the cell membrane. If you look at the modifications of the cell membrane, the things you will want to know is number one, microvilli. Microvilli are finger-like projections on the apical surface of the cell. If you look at number of cells, microvilli will be finger-like projections on the apical surface of the cell, which will be these are actually foldings of the cell membrane which increase the surface area for the absorption of various substances. Okay, so you'll find microvilli in the intestinal epithelial cells. Intestinal epithelial cells. Next you have to know about pores. Cell membrane does not actually have pores. What it has are infoldings. If you have read the endoplasmic reticulum, you will know that the endoplasmic reticulum is a continuation between the nuclear membrane and the cell membrane. So various substances, various ions, say in the muscular tissue, calcium ion is stored in the endoplasmic reticulum. Now these calcium ions, which are predominantly present in the extracellular fluid, will be present in the endoplasmic reticulum through the pores. Okay, so these are actually openings to the endoplasmic reticulum. Next you have junctional complexes. What are junctional complexes? Junctional complexes are formed of tight junctions, gap junctions, and desmosomes. Okay, these are formed of tight junctions, gap junctions, and desmosomes. You see, in animals, in animal body, a number of cells are placed side by side. So, in order to prevent this cell from dissociating and wandering somewhere else, you will need to create some junctions which will be present in between the cells and will adhere them to one another. If you look at the epithelial tissue, you will have the cells arranged on a basement membrane. Now these cells will be attached to this basement membrane also through desmosomes. So the function of these junctional complexes, which are also modifications of the cell membrane, are in anchoring the cell. Okay. So you'll find a lot of these in the epithelial cells, the epithelial tissue cells. Next, come to a few primitive modification of cell membranes, which include mesosomes. Mesosomes are cell membrane foldings which are involved in cellular respiration, and these are present in bacteria. These are present in bacteria. And you have the lomasomes, which are modification of the cell membranes which are present in the fungi. Okay, this sums up a basic knowledge of modifications of the cell membrane. Now let us deal with some MCQs to see how far we have understood the functioning of the cell membrane. Coming to the first question, what is the thickness of unit membrane? What is the thickness of unit membrane? A. 50 angstrom, B. 75 angstrom, C. 100 angstrom, D. 150 angstrom. For those of you who do not know, 1 angstrom, it's a unit of length, and it is equal to 1 into 10 to the power minus 10 meter. Or so this is 1 angstrom. So what is the thickness of unit membrane? It's 50, 75, 100, 150. Now, you must be very confused in this question because normally the thickness of a cell membrane will vary from 50 angstrom to 150 angstrom in different cells. However, if you look at this cell, you will find that the question mentions unit membrane. So it is hinting at Robertson's unit membrane model. In Robertson's unit membrane model, Robertson specifically mentions that the thickness of the unit membrane is 75 angstrom and it is composed of 20 angstrom protein layer with 35 angstrom intermediate lipid and another 20 angstrom protein layer. Okay, coming to the next question. Cell recognition and signaling is facilitated by A. Proteins only, B. Lipids only, C. Proteins and lipids, D. Lipoproteins and glycolipids. Now this question will teach you to patiently read all the answers in a question. Because if you look at this question, cell recognition and signaling, proteins are definitely responsible for this, lipids are also responsible. Both proteins and lipids is also correct, but the most appropriate answer in this question is glycoproteins and glycolipids. Because when oligosaccharides are attached to the proteins and lipid molecules, they are actually what? Which take part in cell signaling. So you have to be careful to read all the answers and choose the most appropriate, because maybe all of them are right, but one of them will be most appropriate. Coming to the next question, what is best for studying the cell membrane? What is best for studying the cell membrane? I'll give you 4 options. Now look, this is one question to which you have to know the answer. Okay, the answer will be human RBC. Now the question is why? See, if you want to study the structure of cell membrane in purity, you ideally need a cell without any endoplasmic reticulum or any exchange of cell membrane, so that the cell membrane is to some extent static. Now if you look at a mature human RBC, a mature human RBC does not have a nucleus, it does not have an endoplasmic reticulum. So this gives you a stable isolated cell membrane which you can study? So the answer is human RBC. Coming to the next question, which is the latest model of cell membrane? Is it Overton's? Is it unit membrane model? Is it fluid mosaic model, or is it lamellar model? Now I hope you have noticed in the previous video that I was writing the years beside the structure of their proposition. If you remember the years, you'll know that Overton's model was put forward in 1900, this was given in 1935, this was given in 1959, and this was given in 1972. So the fluid mosaic model is the most recent model. You'll also have to remember the year of proposition of these models of the cell membrane. Okay. Also, if you can put a bit of concept, you'll know that the fluid mosaic model is the most thorough and detailed model of the cell membrane. So as we usually go forward in biology, we have better techniques to study various things. So the models get elaborate as we proceed. Okay, so you'll find primitive models previously, and then you'll find modifications gradually all along the way. Coming to the next question. Which of the following is not true for cell membrane? A, found in both plants and animals. Phospholipids are abundant. Proteins are present in cell membrane. Carbohydrates are usually not found in cell membrane. Look, these are questions to confuse you. You have to notice that true will be written in capital letters and this not won't be in capital letters. So when you're in a hurry while solving the MCQs and you give 30 to 40 seconds per MCQ, it is in a lot number of cases that you'll miss this not. So it is important to read all the MCQs, and then you'll see that of course cell membrane is found in both plants and animal cells. They are present inside the cell wall in plant cells and they're the outermost layer in animal cells. Phospholipids are abundant, proteins are present in the cell membrane. Carbohydrates are usually not found. Now this is wrong. So this will be your correct option, because carbohydrates are formed, as you know, in the form of oligosaccharides, and they are 1 to 8% and are responsible for cell recognition and cell signaling. Okay. Next, coming to the last question. Which of the following will be able to pass across the cell membrane even if proteins are removed? Option A, galactose. Option B, methionine. Option C, bicarbonate. And option D, sphingomyelin. Now this is a bit difficult for those of you who are in lower classes, but for those of you who are in class 10 and above, you have to have a knowledge of biomolecules and of cell to solve this question. Look, what I have said is, if proteins are removed, so the cell membrane had both an hydrophobic ambience and the proteins were providing for the hydrophilic passage. If proteins are removed, it essentially removes the hydrophilic passage. Okay, it removes the hydrophilic passage. So that is the first point. Next, look at galactose. What is galactose? Galactose is a carbohydrate. What is methionine? Methionine is a amino acid. So it is protein. Bicarbonate is an ion. It is charged. It is charged. So if you look at all of these three, carbohydrate, methionine and bicarbonate, these are all water soluble. These are all hydrophilic. So if you remove proteins from the cell membrane, none of this will be able to pass. So even if you say you do not know what sphingomyelin is, even if you know these three substances, you'll be able to answer this question just by ruling three of this out. This automatically becomes the substance which will be able to pass. Now what is sphingomyelin? Sphingomyelin is also a type of phospholipid. Now since it's a lipid, even if you remove the proteins from the cell membrane, it will be soluble in the hydrophobic lipid layer and it will be able to pass across the cell membrane. Okay, so you need a very conceptual knowledge about the cell membrane to understand how the cell functions and how transport of various substances occurs across the cell. Okay, so this will be all for cell membrane. Please consult both of the videos for a complete knowledge, and if you have any doubts, call at 7439-304-203 or WhatsApp your doubts at 89100-25670. Also, if you have any particular topic that you have in mind and you have some confusion in it, you can call us and tell us about that topic and we'll try to make a video on that. Thank you.